Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. Welcome back, one and all. I'm Adam the Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at Villainous, a Disney-themed action selection and hand management game by Ravensburger. Before we dive in, I'd like to give a brief thank you to my sister for letting me borrow this copy from her for the purposes of this review. Without any further ado, let's dive in! In Villainous, 2 to 6 players will be taking on the roles of various Disney villains, attempting to change the ending of the film in their favor. Mind you, if there's a certain villain you want from an expansion, you can buy one of the smaller sets without the original. Just bear in mind that you'll only be able to play with up to 3 players. To set up, each player will need to choose a villain. Each villain comes with a realm board. Take the matching figure and place them in the leftmost location within your realm. Each villain also has a 30-card villain deck and a 15-card fate deck. Shuffle each of these individually and keep them near your realm board. Each character has their own guide that gives a brief overview of how they work and explains any additional setup that may be unique to that villain. For example, in the base game, Jafar, Captain Hook, and Ursula will each start with a lock token on the rightmost location, preventing them from moving onto that space until certain conditions are met. Aside from that, make sure that the power tokens are within easy reach of all players. Playing with 5 or 6 players, you'll also need the fate token, although I like to house rule using it for 3 or more. Randomly select a player to go first. That player will start with no power tokens. The player going second starts with 1 power, 3rd and 4th players start with 2, and 5th and 6th players start with 3 tokens each. Each player draws 4 cards from their villain deck, and with that, you're ready to begin. Turn structure in Villainous is quite simple. You'll start by moving your figure to another location in your realm. It doesn't have to be adjacent, but it can't be locked and you can't stay on the same space. After you move, you may take any or all of the actions indicated on the space in any order you choose. Most spaces will start with 4 actions. The simplest of these is Gain Power, which will simply have you taking the number of power tokens indicated on the action. Discard cards is also a rather simple one. You choose any number of cards in your hand and discard them. The other actions require a bit of interaction to understand how they work together. Firstly, you have Play a Card, which lets you choose and play a card from your hand. Each card has a cost in the top left corner. So, for example, if the Queen of Hearts wanted to get her husband into play, it'll cost her 2 power. You may only play 1 card per Play a Card action, but some spaces will have this action listed more than once. When you play a card, it has different effects depending on what type of card it is. Effects do what they say, then immediately go to your discard pile. Meanwhile, allies are played to your realm. You'll choose a location and place the card underneath it. Allies can have their own effects, but you'll want to pay attention to their strength listed in the bottom left corner of the card. That'll be important in a little bit. The next card type is Item. Items are generally played to a location in the same way as allies are, but some, such as Cutlass, are instead equipped by a specific ally within your realm. Finally, you also have Conditions. These are not played via Play a Card action, but instead are activated during other players' turns when your opponents fulfill certain conditions. For example, Prince John may immediately play Greed if any other player has 6 or more power, while Ursula can play Arrogance immediately after an opponent defeats a hero with 4 or more strength. Back to the different actions, you may be wondering how heroes appear and how they can be defeated. That brings us to Fate actions. When you use a Fate action, you'll choose any other player and reveal the top 2 cards of their Fate deck. You'll choose one to play and discard the other. Fate cards hinder the player in question. As before, effects are used immediately, while heroes are played to the top space of the location within that player's realm. This will cover up the top 2 actions on that space. Until that hero is defeated, that player cannot use those actions when they move to that space. And finally, Fate decks sometimes have items. These must be equipped to heroes in order for them to be used. When playing with 5 or more players, or 3 or more if you decide to take my advice and house rule it, after a player is targeted by a Fate action, they'll take the Fate token. Whichever player has the Fate token may not be targeted by Fate actions, but they must give it up after anyone else is the target of one. And now that you understand how allies and heroes work, we move on to Vanquish actions. When you take a Vanquish action, you choose one hero in your realm. The hero does not have to be in the same space as you, but you must have allies in the same location as the hero you are attacking. Allies and heroes each have strength listed in the bottom left corner. In order to defeat the hero, you must discard allies with strength equal to or greater than the hero you're attacking. You may discard multiple allies to do so, but any excess strength is wasted. When a hero is defeated, place them in your Fate discard pile, but bear in mind that they may return to challenge you again.
How many times do I have to kill you, boy?
Next, we have 2 move actions. Move an item or ally allows you to do just that. Bear in mind that an item that is attached to an ally cannot be moved by itself, but will move along with the ally using it if you choose to move them. Similarly, Move a Hero allows you to choose any hero in your realm and move them to an adjacent location. You cannot move a hero to or from a location that is locked. Finally, some characters may have activate actions. Certain cards you play will have the symbol, and when you take an activate action, you may choose one of them to use. For example, Jafar could use his snake staff to search for Hypnotize from his deck, or he can use Iago to carry an item with him. Once you're done with your actions, you'll draw back up to 4 cards and play passes to the next player on your left. At this point, you may be wondering, how do you win? The fact of the matter is that this is different for every character. In the base game, Captain Hook needs to lure Peter Pan to the Jolly Roger and then defeat him. Jafar needs to hypnotize the genie and have the lamp at the Sultan's palace at the start of his turn. Maleficent must have at least 1 curse in each location of her realm at the start of her turn. Prince John must have at least 20 power tokens at the start of his turn.
Money, money, money!
The Queen of Hearts must have at least 1 wicket at each location, then play the Take the Shot card, which gives her a chance to win depending on what comes out of her deck. And finally, Ursula must control the crown and trident in her lair at the start of her turn. On to component quality. Tokens and realm boards are made out of cardboard of decent thickness, while cards are likewise made sufficiently thick. Cards are not textured. Included with the original set is a plastic cauldron to hold your power tokens. It's honestly rather flimsy and made of very thin plastic, though it does look kind of cool. Each villain has a unique miniature. Instead of simply recreating the villain in mini form, each is stylized in a way that's rather unique. I know some people have complained about this choice, but honestly, I think it works rather nicely. And of course, you have the artwork on the cards. This is simply excellent. Those who bemoan games that simply use screen grabs from movies will be happy to know that all of the art in-game was drawn specifically for Villainous, each professionally drawn to recreate famous scenes, characters, items, and locales from their respective films. And as aforementioned, there are many expansions. I'm not actually going to go into too much detail here, as while each villain still plays very uniquely and thus has differing mechanics, let's be honest here. The driving force between which sets you get is probably going to be driven more by the characters and films represented rather than anything else. I was pleasantly surprised to see my top pick come out after only 2 expansions, while most of the big names have been represented by now. All in all, Disney Villainous is a fun and very unique game. Each villain plays completely differently from one another, and it really does feel like they've captured the spirit of their individual films. Aside from the ending, of course. However, this uniqueness is also what creates the game's greatest shortcoming: balance. Because each villain plays wildly different from one another, some of them have an easier time winning than others do. The Queen of Hearts is especially notorious for being easy to win with, and some villains are just a lot easier to disrupt with their fate cards than others. Despite this, it is an enjoyable game that captures its theme quite well. If you're a fan of classic Disney animation, you should definitely check it out. The art is great, the gameplay is fun, and despite its one major shortcoming, I keep finding myself wanting to try new characters. In conclusion, I find Disney Villainous to be worthy of a solid 7.4 out of 10. If you're interested in purchasing your own copy of Disney Villainous, my first suggestion, as always, is to check with your friendly local game store. If you're unable to find it, or simply wish to learn more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of Disney Villainous? Which villain is your favorite? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.